Good evening. This is Embassy Media, dear viewers. Today I have the privilege of presenting Nathan Carty. Nathan is an Eritrean and Jamaican mixed heritage young man born and bred in the United Kingdom. His Eritrean mother was brought up in Uganda and moved to the United Kingdom in her late teens and has since lived in the UK with Nathan and his two other siblings. Nathan is an inspirational 24-year-old young man who throughout his late teens went through several different experiences and challenges that have gone on to shape his ideals and perspective on life. Nathan has managed to face these challenges head on, learn from them, using his past mistakes as a guide to not only allow him to mentor other youth that are facing similar issues, but to also become the best version of himself amongst his family members and peers. Today's society is obsessed with success and achievements, and failure is definitely not part of the equations. Failure and making mistakes is hidden away or seen as a human weakness. Please join me in a heart-to-heart conversation with Nathan, who has learned to embrace his setbacks in life as stepping stones to a lifetime of success. I'm very, very happy, and it's a pleasure to talk to you, Nathan. Growing up, how much were you influenced by your mother? What's the most Eritrean thing that you learned from her, Nathan?
I'll start with the first question. Thank you for having me, Eric, first and foremost. It's a pleasure to be here. How much was I influenced by my mum? I feel like growing up in the household that I grew up, my dad left when I was quite young, which obviously meant that my mum had to step up and become both, the father and the mother figure of the household. So, growing up, all of my decisions that I sort of made as a child were based around her ethics and her morals. And because my mum's really a woman of integrity, so she brought us up around, the value statements of what our soldiers used to use back in the day that fought for their independence, as well as, the Bible and the morals that the Bible instills. So, growing up, my mum's been a huge influence and had a huge impact on my sort of my outlook and my perspective on life. I'd say first and foremost, growing up in our household, we've got quite an open house, and that's something that when you go to Eritrea and also Ethiopia, houses, in those places and families in those places tend to be quite open. They tend to be quite hospitable in the sense where, if you go to an Eritrean's house and you're eating dinner, you're going to end up leaving there, a lot bigger than you came in. They'll just keep forcing that food down. That's just down to respect, really. So, that's played a huge role. When my friends come over, when I have people over around the house, I know how to, I know how to cook, I know how to take care of them, I know how to, make sure that they're well looked after. And all of these attributes came from, my mum. So, she's played an absolutely massive role in terms of my upbringing. And there's, we could go on for days in terms of the things that I have learned from her. But yeah, that would be one of them.
Yeah. Nathan, you mentioned that you were raised by a godly mother who very much mirrors the values statements of the Eritrean people for most of your childhood. What could be stronger than these values to have caused you to be sidetracked?
I feel like it comes down to the people that you have around you. I've been brought up on a phrase, show me your 5 best friends and I'll show you who you are. And which basically means that who you surround yourself with is who you will become. So, as much as I had my mum in the house to, to read the Bible with me, to have devotion, to pray with me, to instill these, these rules of integrity and morals into my life, at the same time, she is a single mum and she's got a lot on her plate. She needs to go to work. So the time that I'm not spending with her, I'm spending outside, which is at school or, when I'm chilling with my friends. And it's just the path I chose in terms of the people that I started hanging around with that had a negative influence on myself, that never had the upbringing that I had growing up, never had the parents that I had growing up, so didn't really know better. But obviously myself, I decided to to get involved with those types of people and get involved into that life of crime. And that's just where things sort of tipped over and went wrong.
Nathan, what are the three bits of advice would you give to a 16-year-old tempted to go down the wrong way?
It's funny, Jared. I mean, growing up, I always used to speak to a lot of adults, a lot of people that were older than me, uncles, aunties, and whatnot. And they always used to tell me, if I could go back in time and do it all again, you guys are so privileged now, you're lucky, get your head down, focus on what matters most to you. And I always used to think, why does everyone keep saying that? You don't really understand it until you grow up yourself, and then you're looking back at, your little cousins. Now I'm looking back at my little cousins, and I'm more or less telling them the exact same thing. But I mean, three things I would say, three pieces of advice I would give is focus on what you're passionate about. Whatever your passion is, it could be art, it could be music, it could be singing, it could be anything. Make sure you focus on that and don't let no one sort of stray you from that, because 9 times out of 10, your best friends can actually be your worst enemies, in a sense where if you've got something that you're passionate about, because they don't share that same vision, it can be very easy for them to stray you off path and stray you off course. So that would be the first thing, to just concentrate on whatever it is you're passionate about and do that 100% and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Secondly, your parents are your best friends. So I had to learn the hard way. It took me time in prison for me to realize that when it all was said and done, and I'm doing my sentence in prison, my mum was the only one that was sending me money. My mum was the only one that was coming up to see me and, twice a week and bring books in for me and, just be there for me. And then that in turn made me realize that she's more than just, a mum. She's also a friend. She's someone that I can, and a wise friend in a sense, someone that I can console with, someone I can talk to. So that would be my second piece of advice. Your parents are your friends. They're not your enemies, And my third piece of advice would be just be careful who you're hanging around with. I mean, that plays a massive, massive, massive role, in your future success. And a lot of people don't understand it now, but, who you spend most of your time with and who you chill around will be who you become, and it's that easy, man. I mean, you need to surround yourself with people that are, on a higher frequency and on a higher energy, of people that are aiming for greatness and aiming for success. Because once you surround yourself with those types of people, that's all when you're meeting up together, you're talking about things, and these things are positive things. These things are things that are, going to benefit your future and your success. And that's the sort of energy and the frequency that you're going to be, staying in once you're with them. So that would be the third piece of advice. Surround yourself with people that you'd want someone that you love to surround themselves with. If you look at, for example, your brother or your mum, or even your child, the type of friends that they have around them, is that the type of friends that you want them to have around them, that you have around yourself?
Nathan, you were talking about prison. Let me ask you this way. What affected you going to prison and getting involved in gangs? Have you on your family?
What effect did it have?
Well, what affected? Yeah, what effect?
Yeah. I mean, when you get sentenced, when I went into prison, you think because you're the only one that's inside, that's locked up in a cell, that you're the only one that's being, punished for your actions. And, as I grew older, I started to realize that it wasn't just myself that was being punished, it was also my family. But that's just something I couldn't see on the outside. My mum's invested so much time and effort into me. And, looking at it from her perspective as a mum who's tried as hard as she can to see her son going down this road, that's just as much punishment as it is for me being in prison, and her being outside. Also, the effects it had on my siblings. I've got a younger sister and also an older brother. And it's not nice to not have your older brother or your younger brother in the household. My sister looks up to me. She sees me as someone she can come and talk to, in times of trouble. And then for me to go and, do what I did and not be there when they did need me growing up in their early adolescence, really, I mean, it can be quite painful for them.
I mean, we're talking about real life and challenges here in the Western countries, here in the UK and in London. What would you say you learned from prison, Nathan?
I was speaking to my mum about this the other day, and finally I feel like, God works in mysterious ways, because as much as, prison was hurtful for my family and also myself in a sense, it's also the best thing that could have ever happened to me in my life, in the sense where I learned so much more in prison than I ever did in school. And the reason I'm saying that is I had no internet in prison. I had no access to stuff that a lot of people outside had access to, the stuff that I have access to now, to be honest with you. But in prison, I managed to learn a lot more about myself. I managed to read a lot more. I managed to find out a lot more about myself, because in solitude, once you're by yourself and you've got time to think, and you're not on these distractions that social media bring, and you're fully focused on, what you're doing, it really does bring out a different creative side of you that, you never once knew. So going in, I started attending university courses. I started reading like a book a week. I started meditating, things that I've never done before. And that just opened my eyes to make me realize that, the stuff I learned in school and a lot of the stuff I learned growing up are not really life skills, in comparison to what they should be teaching you. And that's where I feel like, prison was a huge, huge plus for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan, who would you say your role models in life for you?
Role models. I'd say obviously growing up, my mum would obviously be number one. In the sense where what she's had to go through to sort of, get me to where I am today. The stuff that, I don't see behind the curtains growing up, being a single mum, being a mum that's, struggling for work at the time, and also being a God-fearing mum. So a mum of integrity, a mum that doesn't go the wrong way or cut corners in order to try and benefit her situation, even though it is necessary. I feel like that sort of taught me a lot, in the sense where growing up now, I've always wanted to cut corners in order to, get money quickly or to try and benefit my situation. But looking back at it now, I look at my mum's financial situation she was in when she was raising 3 kids, and she still, she made sure she still had integrity. She made sure she done things the right way, and that's gone on to benefit her now, because she's helping, thousands of people around the world. So, yeah, she's been my rock, and even though we've had ups and downs from when I was young, she's always been that person where I looked up to and thought, if I ever do want to make the right decision, or I'm in a decision where I'm in a situation in which I don't know the decision to make, and I want to make the right one, I tend to think, what would my mum do in that situation? That to me means that that person's obviously, my role model.
Have you ever felt like giving up? If so, how did you manage to get back on the horse at Eritrea, Nathan?
Yeah, man. Countless times I felt like giving up, and even gave up, in fact. But obviously bounced back from that. But in times of pain, or in times where I start to doubt myself, or in times where I start to doubt God, which has been a lot of times. The main thing, I haven't got kids at the moment, so the main thing that pops up into my head in these times of stress is my family, and that I have to do it for them. And whatever I'm going through now, whenever I am feeling stressed out, whenever I am feeling like I'm going through things that I don't feel like no one understands, I always sort of realize that this isn't the end. This is only a stepping stone. All the pain, all the stuff that I've been through in my life, and everyone goes through their own pain, and everyone goes through their own troubles in their life, and everything you did go through made you who you are today. So that's how I always see it when I'm going through what I'm going through. As long as I can learn from the mistakes that I've made, as long as I can learn from what I'm going through, then it's only going to make me, bigger and stronger going forward. If I make sure that I do learn from those mistakes. If you start repeating those mistakes again and again, then of course you're just going to end up, feeling even more depressed and even more stressed out over time. But if you learn to nip it in the bud and learn from, what you've gone through, it's only going to make you stronger, and that's all it can do. So that's how I managed to deal with it.
I can see your personality. You're becoming very strong and strong. Has the current Corona pandemic changed your outlook in life? If so, how could you?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, a lot of people have sort of put their life on pause now that the whole sort of pandemic has, the whole pandemic has happened. But I mean, if you come to my house, we're only just getting started. We've learned to sort of use this time in solitude. So the time that we're having to, stay in that lockdown and use that time to get to know a bit more about my family. A lot of people are very segregated in their households during these times. Everyone's in their room doing their own thing. Everyone's doing this or that. Whereas, in our house, we thought, all right, cool. We're all on lockdown. We're going to be staying in this house together for 6 months, 7 months. There's no place we can really go out to. Why not spend time every single day or every other day? Just everyone meeting up in the living room, me and my brothers and my sisters and whoever I've got at the house, which is, my little cousins or, people that my mum are looking after. Why not all just, meet up in the living room? Let's talk about what's going on in our heads. Let's pray, let's have devotion time together. Let's use this time to get to know each other better and help each other grow, instead of obviously seeing it as, a disadvantage, which a lot of people are doing at the moment, but you just got to learn to work with what you've got. So in this situation, that's exactly what we have been doing. And I've learned a lot more about myself and my family during this time than any other time, I'd say in my life, just because that we are solely using this time to just try and build ourselves up spiritually, mentally, and do it together as a unit, which is, it builds up, lifelong memories for memories in a sense where, when I do go on to have a family and I do go on to have my wife and my kids, this is why I use my mum as a role model, because these actions that we've done from a very young age and are still doing now is what I will implement into my life with my kids and my wife going forward. And that's obviously a generational thing, like you said. It's a third generation. I think you said the theme was something to do with
the pride of 3 generations.
3 generations, exactly. So that's more or less instilling that into the name. I mean, that's obviously something that my kids can then pass down, and they can pass down, and they can pass down. So yeah, that's what I've sort of learned from being in this pandemic.
Nathan, I'm very impressed. I'm very, very, happy to see you and
Thank
to
you.
be here on EmbassyMedia. What does Eritrea mean? Because this is a special program, special edition on EmbassyMedia, the pride of 3 generations. What is Eritrea for you?
Eritrea means a lot. I mean, I'm half Jamaican, half Eritrean myself. And every single Eritrean person or Habesha person I bump into just refuses to believe that. Because obviously I clearly just don't look Eritrean, but I'm a lot more Eritrean than a lot of them. And that's just courtesy of the fact that, I love the culture. I absolutely love the culture. When it coming down to the food, to, the music, to just being in that environment where, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll come down and I'll smell my grandma making coffee, and let's catch a fit on the stove there or go out. It's just, it does feel good, and that's just how the culture is. They're very loving, very kind, very friendly. So, being brought up, I was, as soon as I was born, more or less, my grandma started taking care of me. She's Eritrean, my mum's mum. And she used to actually wean me on gat. So, like as a baby, she used to feed me gat with berbere from a very young age. And then from there, I just, obviously, things just sort of evolved over time. And, I used to cook my food and things like that. But I used to make my own Eritrean dishes. I went to go and stay in Eritrea for a while. I even lived in Ethiopia for a while. That whole culture is what I absolutely adore. I'm not really in tune with my Jamaican side. So yeah, the Eritrean culture is what I've been brought up on really. And I love the morals that they stand by and how friendly they are, how hospitable they are. So yeah, I'm proud to be Eritrean, man. If anything, I'm full Eritrean. I wouldn't really class myself as.
Yeah, let me take you back a little bit. When you were like very, very young, in the age of 11, 12 years old, you were always participating in Eritrean festivals, and you were part of the cultural children group. Do you remember the songs? Any songs?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I forgot to mention that, to be honest. Yeah, so from young, we were sort of heavily involved in, the festivals and Independence Days and whatnot. So my mum actually used to get us to, well, she never used to force us to. We used to enjoy doing that at the same time. It used to be me, my cousins, my brothers, my sisters, and my sister, and we used to sort of dress up and, sing songs on stage, sell different foods at the festivals, like Eritrean foods, cultural foods. But yeah, no, I do remember a few of the songs. I don't know if you're gonna.
Do you want me to remind you some of the songs?
Say that again.
Do you want me to remind you some of the songs?
Yeah, please. I mean, my mum reminds me quite often, but it would be good to hear. It's always great to smart talk.
Gimbaraleni.
Gimbaraleni. Nabazbawi Gambas Salafani.
Yes. This is the part of 3 generations.
I'm rusty at the moment, man. I'm just learning, so getting back into learning Tigrinya, so you have to bear with me.
Absolutely. Nathan, it's great to have you here on Embassy Media. I wish you all the success in your future work. You are a very inspirational, you're very intelligent, and I want to see you more into your music, into your art, into your media stuff, radio station stuff. So all the best, and I hope to see you in Asmara. And thank you for your time, and stay safe, Nathan. Thank you so much.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me, Eric. It's been a pleasure, man.
Sure. Finally, do you want to say anything to Eritreans or in your age here? Any message to Embassy Media viewers?
I mean,
Final words?
So kids my age or kids that are growing up, 16, 17, it can be challenging. Now I'm dealing with a lot of mentoring, a few kids at the moment, around 16, 17, 18 that come over to the house. And I try and give them advice and, because I can sort of relate to where they're coming from, because they're facing the same issues I was facing at their age. Yeah, man, I mean, it's just not worth it. You're always going to look back and regret and, feel cheesed off at the times that you spent, just doing nonsense where you could have focused and concentrated on something that you are passionate about and something that you love. And I keep going back to passion because I feel it is very important in a sense where, a life isn't a full life until you know what your purpose is. And I feel like the younger you find that out, the easier life's going to be going forward. And the more fun you're going to have, the more you're going to look at life and enjoy life. If you found out what you want, it could be football, it could be anything, but just ensure that wherever that passion is, you pursue it from, as early as you can, and just stick to it no matter what no one says. And that passion is what will drive you going forward. And that passion is also what will allow you to ensure that you're not hanging around the wrong crowd, or you're not wasting your time doing this and this and that. You're not wasting your early adolescence and your teens doing this and this and that. So you're focusing on what you love doing, and that's what we're born to do. So I mean, that's the advice I'd give to myself if I was 16 or 15. Focus on what you love doing and just stick at it, and that's it, to be honest.
Thank you, Nathan. Dear viewers, this is Embassy Media special edition on Pride of the 3 Generations episodes. My guest speaker tonight was Nathan Carty here from London. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and good night.